Hey, just wanted to welcome you guys to our professional conversation. And today we're talking with Jamaal,
Yes.
and Jamaal is going to help us with a couple of questions that our audience has. And I think it's very important for individuals to know. The question is, what happens after the documents are signed? Jamaal, can you help us and tell our audience what actually happens after the documents are signed at closing?
Gotcha. Great question.
Mm-hmm.
So after closing, you sign a whole bunch of documents, but we're not done just yet. So as soon as we finish, typically if you have a lender, we have to take those documents and they have to be approved. So all the documents you sign, we send it back to your lender, whoever that is, and they review every single document. After they review the documents, they say, hey, everything looks good. If everything looks good, then we can take the next step, which is recording. And as you might know, recording is how we finalize and make the transaction official. So that happens after the lender has reviewed the documents. So we get the documents recorded. We'll take that deed, which is going to transfer the property to you, and then the deed of trust, which is going to basically be your promise to repay your lender. We're going to record that in the county's index, and then at that point, it's official. That process, I would say, probably takes between 2 to 3 hours, depending if there's no delays. But that's the work that happens in the background. And then after we get it recorded, this goes for sellers. We can write checks, any invoices that need to be paid, we can send those out once the transaction's officially recorded. Any payoffs that need to be sent, we do that after as well. So you go to the closing, you sign all the documents, and really the magic happens in the background of getting the transaction closed out, sending money, and then making sure that the buyer gets their house.
Yeah, because most people think everything happens right when you're signing it,
Mm-hmm.
but the real part of it
Oh yeah.
is after.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And I mean, one of the most important things too, after closing is typically when you get your key as well. And the reason why you have to wait on that is because all these things have to happen in the background to actually finish the transaction out. So a little bit work after effect, but yeah.
Okay. Now you brought up a good point, or something I wanted to talk about a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
Is sometimes people don't get, or oftentimes they don't get the keys as soon as they sign, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And what could happen if a person does get the key and they actually go and move in the house right away?
Gotcha. So the house isn't yours until it records. So even though you have the key in your hand, moving in prior to that or doing any damage to the house or anything like that, you would potentially be liable for. So you want to make sure that although you have the key in your hand, it's not your house just yet. So you want to hold off on doing anything that might destroy the house or cause any issues for sure.
Mm-hmm. I've had, kind of a funny story. I had a buyer who wanted to move in as soon as
Mm-hmm.
went to close it, and I was like, absolutely not, because they were giving me a problem about that, and I was
That's
telling
right.
them basically the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
is that it's not your house
That's
yet,
100% right.
and they figure because they signed
Mm-hmm.
that is theirs.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, that makes sense though. But North Carolina, the reason why that's the case, we're recording jurisdiction here. So although you've signed the documents, the transfer doesn't actually occur until it's been recorded,
exactly.
which is why you have to wait for your keys. So a lot of people get hung up on that, but it's just how the law works. So and really we do that to protect you as well. You want you to go into the house and be liable for anything either. So that's definitely good advice.
Mm-hmm. And you guys, you don't want to go to jail for trespassing, right?
Absolutely not.
Over something, and all it takes is being a little bit patient, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And sometimes, like, I don't know if you heard in his comment that it might be some kind of a delay, maybe a couple hours. And the reason for that is that, as he stated, is that the lender has to also go back and look at every last one of those forms that you guys sign. And so they have to approve it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they get a closing. Then they let you guys know that it's approved to close completely.
Yeah, and another thing too, when we send the documents to a lender, depending on who your lender is for your loan amount, they don't always send that money before you're closing. So sometimes they have to review the documents before we even have any money to finish your transaction. So that's another reason why, the waiting process is good, and all that you have your keys, you're like, hey, I'm ready to move in, but your lender might not have sent the money yet either.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to wait that out because you just never know. And then sometimes there's issues too, which you might have seen where folks haven't necessarily, there's certain documents that were missed, or maybe there was a rider or something like that needed to be signed that the lender didn't catch. So it's kind of a waiting process, QC, to make sure everything looks good. So then that way, from a buyer's perspective, they don't have to sign something after closing. Everything's done, and then you're good to go. So,
and then that also brings up something else. It reminds me of when, not reminds me of when, but I'm sure you guys have always heard, your agent will say something like, "Don't go out and buy anything before close." They're still checking.
That's right.
Those lenders are checking, and so you don't want to mess up your credit or change your debt to income ratio by buying something, even though you signed everything, they're looking one last time. So
100%.
yeah, you don't want to be that person. And then you're like, why aren't we closed? Why hasn't it been recorded? Well, the lender hasn't signed off on it yet, or they might not have funded it. Well, that means that they've sent the money to the closing attorney where they funded it. So, guys, it's not your house yet.
Not yet.
Nope. Wait till it's recorded, and usually you'll inform either the agent that's working with both parties, correct?
Exactly.
So that then they'll know that it's time, and then those keys are actually yours. So be patient and wait until after you've been notified that it's actually your property at that time. Jamaal, thank you so much. We really appreciate
You're
you
welcome.
coming on this episode.
Definitely, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Look forward to our next conversation.
Soon.
Sounds good.